Hello everyone, I'm Nora Baldner alongside Jeff Dorsey. We are continuing our Let's How to Call Games series. Now we've talked a little bit about passion for sports broadcasting. Let's get to the nitty gritty of play-by-play because we've already know we need to be descriptive and observant, but let's get inside your brain. How do you watch a game and visually see what's going on and make it come out in a broadcast way, descriptive and correct? And how do you actually do the play-by-play calling a game?
Well, it all goes back to preparation, okay? You cannot just go to a game and then start to write down starting lineups when you're there. You've got to have that prepared for you. The sheets that I developed for myself, and there are many of them out there now that play-by-play guys just take off the internet. But what I used was, let's take baseball for instance. I'd have the batting order at the top of the sheet, and at the bottom of the order I have the field designed for the other team. So when I'm looking at that, I got what's going on. I got the home team batting, I got the visiting team out on the field. And when they make 3 outs, I flip it over and it's just the opposite for the other way. So all that prep work is there in front of you. So you say, how do you take it from what you're seeing and how and to get it out of my mouth? First of all, you try to do so succinctly in as few words as possible, especially television. Radio doesn't make a lot of difference, but some people, a lot of criticism of play-by-play announcers is they talk too much. I kind of laugh at that because
that's the job.
That's the job. But in a way, I understand what they're saying. Sometimes you have to let the crowd be a part of it, let the atmosphere of the game come through. A lot of times you'll hear in monumental home runs, like Albert Pujols last year hit his 700th home run. And the announcer described the home run, it's a home run, and then he let the crowd just take over because the crowd was everything. The announcer wasn't anything at that point except to describe it went over the wall, it's home run number 700, and let the crowd just, the moment, take over. And that's something the play-by-play people need to understand as well. It isn't about them, it's about the atmosphere of the game. So, the normal blasé game where you don't have a 700 home run coming up, you describe it as simply as, what you see. First of all, you have to know the terminology of the game. You can get people who will broadcast multiple games and they sometimes don't pick up the terminology. And anybody who's a baseball fan is watching that game or listening to it. They're baseball fans already. Right. You can teach them a few things. They can learn a few things from your broadcast. But for the most part, if you're watching it and we're listening to it, you know the game pretty well. And so when you start explaining why he did this, they already know that. And you don't want to diminish their think, well, you got a sharp audience here for the most part. There are some new people who don't know much about baseball or whatever sport it is, and they're watching the game, and they can pick up on a few things. But I like to look at a game and set up things ahead of time. I played the game for a long time. I'm talking about baseball right now. Right. Played it for a while. I know the ins and outs of the game very well, I think. And when there's a reason for something happening or could happen, I like to describe it ahead of time. Say he's taking a good lead off first base. I think he's going to go on this pitch because they don't want to get into a double play. So you say that before it happens. And then sure enough, he takes off. It makes you look like you know what you're talking about. And if he doesn't take off, it's, well, I thought he was going to go, and those kind of things. But there's a reason if you plan ahead and I guess I call that managing a game in my head.
So it's almost we've got preparation and almost anticipation.
Yep, anticipation.
You're anticipating the next play.
Everything is anticipation.
Okay.
In any sport. It's 4th down and 1. Are they going to run the ball? They're going to pass the ball. And you start thinking, well, this would be good. You start saying things like, this might be a good time to throw a quick out or something like that in football. You look ahead a little bit, and if it happens, great. If it doesn't happen, so be it. You describe the play.
Sure.
But it is anticipation. You anticipate the first pitch of a game. You anticipate the first run. Everything is, we're looking forward to the first home run of the season or something like that. The Hawks baseball team had a phenomenal year this year, and they were trying to break the school record for total home run, or the NCAA record for total home runs in a season. And, when that was going on, everybody was thinking, well, it hit a home run here. It's going to, so everybody was anticipating that. Well, you can mention it, and it should be mentioned. It's worthy of being mentioned. That if he hits it over the wall, it's going to be a record breaker. But, and other times you can just leave it alone and just, but know how many he's got. So when it goes over the wall, I'm not scrambling around to find my stat sheet to find out.
So you're keeping stats and watching and
I do.
broadcasting. You keep your own stats.
My own
Right.
stats. Now, I'm old school, remember, okay? I've been a long time since I've done play-by-play until recently. But the new guys who do it now, they have the computer system, that's everything, the stats are right there in front of them, and they're automatically updated.
Well, but they're automatically updated by a person,
Yep.
by a human.
Yep.
What if Wi-Fi goes down? What if the person makes a mistake?
Yep.
I mean, it's a good idea to at least have a running, something in front of you, pen to paper,
And
right?
you don't want to have that I lost my cell phone feeling when you're up there doing a broadcast.
Exactly.
It's scary when that
Well,
happens.
you joke about being old school, but I think old school is, the correct school. I mean, you've got to have that base in order to be able to fall back on it if your
Yep.
technology falls apart.
Yeah,
Right?
that's the ultimate of being prepared.
Right.
Even if you're working with the new stuff, it probably would behoove you to do the old way too.
Right.
Just so it's sitting over here, in case everything goes on you, you've got something in front of you to go on.
Anyone who works with technology has had that day
Oh, yeah.
where it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
So you've talked a little bit about baseball play-by-play, and you said you don't have to necessarily be talking the whole time. But what if it's basketball? What if it is a quick sport, and
Yeah.
you do actually have to be saying what the plays are pretty
Yeah,
quickly?
well, baseball is a lot of downtime, so you have to
Sure.
fill a lot of time with stats and stuff on the players more, and you have to be more detailed with it. Basketball, the pace of the game is how your broadcast goes too. The play-by-play guy in basketball or hockey is even crazier, which I've never done, but had the opportunity to do at one time. But the pace of those games forces you to pick up your pace in doing the play-by-play. That ball gets up down, once it's rebounded on a missed shot and it's down the court in like 2 seconds. Well, 3 guys touch the ball in 2 seconds, and you got to come up with the names, and then what happens with the play? Where did the ball go in the other end, or not? Now the rebound, they head back the other way. So your pace and your play-by-play calling is much quicker, and you've got to be on your game a little bit more. There are times where I've done games where it's gone back and forth, and all of a sudden, I couldn't wait for a commercial break. So. It all depends on the game. I mean, if you're into the game, it'll happen naturally. What you don't want to do is try to get caught up in it. If the ball's moved to 3 different people in basketball and you didn't see who the second one was, leave it alone. Go to where the ball is and lay it in, okay, for the basket.
And I'm doing a little bit of a preview to another segment, but at least you also have, most of the time, you have a partner, an analyst or color
Yep.
commentator who can, if you give them that little I need to take a sip of water, can take
Yep.
it for a minute and give you that verbal
Well,
break, right?
You normally have a partner, and I don't know, these days, a lot of them are doing solos.
Right.
And it's difficult. It's very difficult to do a solo broadcast because you've got other things going on besides the play-by-play. Sometimes they make you read commercials, and you got a list of commercials, and you got to read the copy on them, and then get back to the game, and you never stop talking. And that's difficult sometimes. But with the
I have
partner,
students in class that would love to do that because they never stop talking in class. So maybe I should say, I know what your major
well,
should
and they got one part of play-by-play down, don't
be.
they?
Right.
But when you have a partner, it's critical that you work with that partner and give them kind of cues as to when you want them. Some of them can be verbal cues, and the way you finish your sentence and he realizes, I got to jump in.
Pick up.
Other ones are just like, you kind of make some sort of physical cue, like take it or something,
yeah.
and then they'll jump in and do their thing. And a good play-by-play, a good color announcer will know when to jump in and when not to.
Sure.
The one thing, if we can touch on the color side of this, unless you were wanting to do that.
Well, we are gonna do a segment on color.
Okay,
so
we'll hold off
let's
on
hold
that.
on that.
Okay.
Back to play-by-play. What are some mistakes that we inevitably are going to make, and then how do you get out? How do you bounce back from
Well, one of the mistakes is pronunciation. Everyone's got a mom out there and a dad listening, or grandma or grandpa now, and they can watch it or online or listen to it in a variety of different ways. one thing you don't want to do is mispronounce the name. It's happened, and sometimes it happens based on the information you're given. You know, they do a pronunciation guide which isn't right, and some of them, some they don't put a pronunciation guide on. So when you know how to pronounce it, you go down and ask the coach or somebody on the team, how do you pronounce Joe's name? And they tell you how to do it. Well, writing it down there is not going to do it. You have to phonetically, so I do it. I phonetically put it down there. Nobody's going to see my sheet. They're going to hear my name pronunciation. That's all that counts.
Right.
Get it right. You know, you can look at the roster and say, whoa, there's a lot of foreign players now in a lot of sports, and their names are difficult to pronounce. Hockey announcers, God bless the hockey announcers, because these guys are jumping on the ice, off the ice. They're from Russia, they're from Slovakia, they're from Finland, Sweden, the United States even, and then Canada. They have different backgrounds and different name pronunciations for them. So they're a much more difficult game in hockey to broadcast. But even basketball too is getting that way quite a bit. So, you know, one of the things is to make sure you get the names right. I forgot your question now.
No, that was like some mistakes that might happen in play-by-play.
Yeah, well, the mistake could be, you know, you've given, well, biggest mistake people make for play-by-play is not giving the score enough.
There you go.
I listened to a local football game 2 years ago, it's been now, and I literally drove 45 minutes back into Quincy listening to that game, and they did tell me that the one school was leading over the other school, but they didn't tell me what the score was. I mean, are they leading by a lot? Are they leading by a point? And even at commercial breaks, every commercial break that you come out of, you give the score when you come back.
But to push back, isn't it? It's graphically on the screen, but you're talking
radio. I'm talking radio.
But even if it is on the screen and
still give
television, you should still give the
still
score.
Give. A lot of people can't see that little score.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, a lot of graphics are more difficult than others to pick up, depending on the network that's doing it. I have trouble with some of them.
Okay.
You know, so it's like it never hurts to give the score too much.
Okay.
It hurts when you don't give it enough.
So name pronunciation, give the score a lot. What if you flat out make a mistake and either call a play wrong or
Own it.
something? Own it. Okay.
Just own it. You made the mistake. You're human.
Correct it.
You just say, hey, I gave John Smith 2 points for that basket. It wasn't John that got it. I was notified that it was Fred White,
Sure.
and Fred got the 2 points. So my apologies. You know, it happens. You know, and there's just so much going on, and the games are so much quicker. And even in baseball, the pace is picked up now even more. So you're going to make mistakes, and nobody does a perfect broadcast. If you think you're going to get behind a microphone, and you know they may sound like it, the Bob Costas and the Joe Bucks and the Jim Nances, they're so polished with everything, but they make mistakes too, and they can cover it up. Sometimes you either come right out and say you did it, if it's grievous. Other than that, if it's nothing, you leave it alone.
Right.
You don't call attention to it.
Okay.
Because most people didn't, you made the mistake.
Right.
But they don't always know it. Now, if it's something that's going to affect the broadcast and the scoring or something, that's different.
Just own it.
Yeah, I said I gave Fred the home run when it should have been, had the wrong batter up.
Okay. So play-by-play with Jeff Dorsey, and another segment we will talk about analyst and color commentating.